Hello guys, it's Chris here from the Football League Hub, or otherwise known as United Avenger. So just going to talk a little bit about today in terms of the updates that I've got around, obviously, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, what's happening with his future, because he's still Manchester United manager. So a lot of fans want to understand what's going on there. So we're going to give a little bit of context around that. I'm going to talk about Brendan Rodgers because he's been linked massively to Manchester United over the last few days. And there's some traction in that. So there has to be some sort of truth in there. So I'm just going to clarify what I've been told and what's going on and where the board are. And we'll talk about the other options as well that's included within that, the likes of Zidane, Ten Hag, and those sort of people, and see if they've moved any further towards more interest towards United. We'll talk about that. And then ultimately at the end, I'm going to talk about the questions that people have for me on Twitter, and I'll go through some of them. If I've said something before that about the questions, then I will just say I might not answer your question, obviously, because I've already gone through it. So what I want to do is talk about Solskjaer first. I want to talk about what's happened with Solskjaer, recap what's been going on, because there's been a lot of confusion, a lot of people saying he's resigned or he's sacked. That's not happened at the moment. So you can ignore those accounts because they don't know what they're talking about. So what I want to talk about firstly is that Joel Glazer, there's some interest here on the board and what's going on is that he said to Solskjaer that he expect improvements over the last 3 games. He hasn't had that. If he's taken the Tottenham game in Atlanta, I think that's false pretenses. However, we've now come into a situation where Joel has decided from Saturday after the defeat of Manchester City that Solskjaer remains at the club and he isn't listening to anyone else. The board, some of the board members have said, look, maybe we need to change. And Joel's saying, well, you need a plan. I'm not going to change so quickly. So at the moment, what Joel Glazer said is that because there isn't anyone that he considers being a full option, now that might change over the next couple of weeks, depending on results, that he still thinks that Solskjaer can turn it around. Obviously, we guys know that's nonsense, that he's not got the ability to turn it around. We know that he's had so many chances already this season, and with the squad he's got, we just don't see it. Now, he's probably going to go and beat Watford, right? I mean, that's an easy game. And if he doesn't beat them, then he should be sacked. I'm expecting an update to say he's sacked after Watford if he doesn't beat Watford, because Glazers are going to leave themselves into a position where they're showing their true colours, and they can't do that after the Super League. So, these are desperate times for the owners, so they're going to have to act. They should have acted already, but again, this is just down to them saying that they're not sure about the options. So Solskjaer at the moment is on a massively, he's there by default in theory, because if you had the likes of Pochettino available, then he wouldn't be there. Right? That's like United would love to have Pochettino now. They can't get him because PSG are still keeping hold of them. We have to analyse that situation. But at the moment, Solskjaer's there by default. He's not there by merit in the last 3 seasons when he got second. He's had 4 points in 18 out of 18, which is relegation. And even if you're in that position, look at Norwich. They've just sacked their manager after he won a game, right? And they have similar points in the last 18, and Solskjaer's still there. So it's massively concerning from the fans, and I understand that from their point of view. So, if people get frustrated about that, then they can, because it is frustrating. Solskjaer, as good as he was as a player, he's no longer the manager to take United forward. And the Glazers are struggling with that, because the Glazers' ambition is, if you get me top 4, you're secure, right? They should change the way they do that now. They should be looking at the likes of Manchester City and Chelsea. Yes, you can keep your historical values, but you can still have elements of those clubs, because none of their managers would be able to stay as managing as the club if they got 4 out of 18 points. It's not good enough. So I get it, right? Now, I don't see, and from what I'm told and I don't expect Solskjaer to end the season with Manchester United. I just don't see it. And a lot of people I've spoken to just don't see it. And there is some board members that do think, and I've told Joel Glazer, that we might need to make a change here, because what we're doing is, you've got the likes of Ronaldo, you've got big players that you might lose at the end of next season. depending on what goes on, we'll have to see with that. There's issues with Pogba. I don't see him signing a contract under this current coaching regime. And, there's a lot of issues with the coaching, as we've said, and a lot of things have come out around the coaching, and you can see that. Pep said he didn't even know how United play. Well, we don't. None of the fans know how United play. So it's a difficult one at the moment for United fans. But at the moment, Solskjaer still retains Joel Glazer's interest. And, we'll have to see what happens with that. But if he loses against Watford, then he has to go. The Glazers would have to do damage limitation at that point, and they should be doing it now. But if he loses against Watford, which could happen because of their confidence, then he has to go. And if you look at the Arsenal and Chelsea games, if he loses both of them, which I don't expect him to win, and that might be me being negative, but I don't see that being winnable games considering what I've seen in the last performances. If you're losing to Aston Villa, who've lost the last 5 and sacked their manager, there's massive concerns there, right? And there have been all season. So, the coach is not up to scratch. The Glazers want a plan in place, which they should have a plan in place. There's a number of options which we'll talk about. But at the moment, Solskjaer hasn't been sacked. He hasn't resigned. I've seen news saying he's resigned and they're waiting for an option. They don't need to do that. They're not going to drag his name through the mud to the point of where he's resigned and now he's waiting. Solskjaer's not going to do that himself. So those accounts, they don't know what they're talking about. I don't mean to be harsh to them, but that hasn't happened. So that's Solskjaer, really. Because at the moment, he will stay in charge for Watford, and that hasn't changed. Joel Glazer, just to summarise, is backing him still. So I expect him to be in charge for Watford, right? Joel Glazer might change his mind in a few days, but I doubt it because he doesn't really do that. Once he's stuck to something, he tends to stick with it. They're quite stubborn in that way. So I don't expect anything. If Poch got sacked in the next couple of days, which that won't happen, by the way, I'm just hypothesis, then yeah, maybe Solskjaer will go, but not at the moment. So he's there by default, which is never good because the manager already kind of knows that he's going to probably go. I mean, he's not stupid, right? Even as much as trying to say, he's going to know that the writing is on the wall. So your heart's less in it. Or I'd be looking at it saying, oh, well, I'll just take the compensation then. And that could be where his head is. I don't know. I'm just making assumptions right now. But if I knew my job was massively on the line, I had a couple of games and there was no opportunity to move it forward, then you'd be looking at that. And that, Steve Bruce did that at Newcastle. He didn't resign. He waited until they gave him the payoff. That's fair. That's on them. I don't expect any manager to ever resign. There's been a couple that have done in the past, but I don't think he's that type of person that would do that. So Solskjaer at the moment will stay in charge for Watford as it stands. If it changes, I'll let you know, of course, but it won't. Right, and then the next thing is Brendan Rodgers, okay? Now, how do I feel about Brendan Rodgers? I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But Brendan Rodgers is actually appreciated by the board. The board consider him and his style of football. He plays a lot of 4-3-3, so he suits the players that they've got. So he is very appreciated high up in the club hierarchy at the moment. But there is nothing, right? There is literally nothing at the moment. They haven't spoken to, which they have to do official talks with Leicester first. They can't go and approach Brendan Rodgers like people have said that Brendan Rodgers has verbally agreed to go to Manchester United. They have to speak to Leicester first for official talks, because then you have to say, well, you have to be in agreement that if Rodgers says yes, you have to pay the compensation, which is not 60 million, 30 million, what people said. I think it's around 10 to 15. I think it might be a little bit less than that negotiated. But, I did put a tweet out saying United might be forced to do that, and they could be forced to do that. And the reason why is that they didn't expect Solskjaer to have such a terrible start to the season. And look around. They're not going to get Poch right now. Zidane's distanced himself to the Premier League at the moment because he only wants a short-term contract. United want a long-term manager. So they could look at, Ten Hag at the moment won't be going in anywhere until the end of the season. So they could say, well, we'll have to go and get Brendan Rodgers. But for them, the board do like Brendan Rodgers. He beat Chelsea for the FA Cup. He won the treble with Celtic. He almost won the league, minus the Steven Gerrard trip up. He almost won the Premier League, right? So he does have those credentials about him. The only concerns that the fans have is the last 2 or 3 seasons with Leicester City, he's bottled the top 4. But he, in my way, he shouldn't really be that shouldn't be considered because he had a lot of injuries in the last season. But also, they should be nowhere near the top 4 anyway. They should be close, but they almost got it. So there are goods. He has stabilised Leicester to be in the top 6. He's removed Arsenal in that sense, although they're slowly coming back. We'll see if they do. Leicester have done quite well to themselves. They've won the Community Shield against Manchester City, and they beat Chelsea in the FA Cup final, and I felt they nullified Tuchel tactics extremely well. So there is something about Rodgers, and he is an upgrade to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So Rodgers is appreciated by the board, and I could see them forcing a compensation. I can actually see them doing that. However, at the moment, there is no official talks of Leicester, and there are no official talks of Brendan Rodgers. Right? They would have to speak to Leicester first before they speak to Brendan Rodgers. And Leicester sometimes have a habit of sending stuff out. So we would know about it, trust me. So there is nothing like that at the moment. The board just appreciate Rodgers. He's on a list. They like him. But is he ahead of Pochettino? No, Pochettino is like their number 1 person they want. In that sense, if they didn't get Rodgers and somehow Solskjaer survives, or they looked at an interim, which at the moment could be an option, but they haven't considered it yet, then they might be looking at Pochettino at the end of the season, and then you could see the likes of Zidane go to PSG, and Mbappe might sign a new contract for PSG because he likes Zidane. There's some relationship there, right? So, there's possible things that could happen. There's a domino effect that always happens with managers, where one goes to the next and the other goes to the other. So, there's multiple things happening. Like Dean Smith could go to Rangers. I doubt it though, but that could be possible. And Steven Gerrard's just gone to Aston Villa. So there's merry-go-rounds with managers all the time. So at the moment, there is no official talks. There's no official talks of any manager at all. This is all rumours. Yeah. Same thing for players that have been linked to Manchester United. They're all rumours because United are saying, well, we know our problems. We're going to go and fix them. But, that's just PR. They just want the fans to say, the fans will be looking at and saying, oh, well, you looked at Declan Rice. Oh, you're looking at Jules Koundé. Oh, well, those positions that we need to look at. So they know what they're doing in that sense. Whether or not they would buy them would be questionable. We've seen it in the past. I very much doubt it. So that's where we are. At the moment, Solskjaer retains small support with the board. It's not as big as it was. Joel Glazers hasn't moved on his decision. A lot of the media are guessing, by the way. Let's just talk about that in a second. The media are just writing their opinions because Manchester United haven't said much right now. They're not going into detail around what they want to do internally in the club. There's a couple of things I found strange, and a lot of other people did, is that Solskjaer has gone on holiday for a week in the middle of crisis. So he's not doing the players that are not on international duty or off. So that's strange in itself. And obviously United are not saying anything to the media. So, hey, something might happen, but I've been told that Joel Glazer is supporting Ollie for the next game. So we'll see with that. But as I said, he's not going to last the season. Definitely not. Not in the way the players are. I don't think they believe in him anymore than myself, to be honest. So hopefully we'll get, we'll probably have to wait to Watford. And if obviously Watford, I don't see Arsenal and Chelsea are losing against this United team and current confidence they have and what United have. But you never know, do you? So, and I would never want a club to lose. It's just we have to see what goes on with that one on there. And in terms of Zidane, there's nothing with Zidane. So there's no official talks with Zidane. He would be one that I'd want at Manchester United because of his pedigree. Obviously, he's won 3 Champions Leagues in a row, which PSG would like, by the way. Definitely interested in him. He nearly won the league with Real Madrid with all those injuries they had. And obviously, if you look at some of his gameplay, it's quick football. So Sancho would massively excel under him because of the 1-2 touches that he likes in the middle of the park and obviously up front. So quick football. So that would be massive for Manchester United. So maybe they're sitting there thinking, well, let's see what we can do with Zidane, because if they have the possibility to convince him, but it would only be a short-term contract. So there's the issues with United. So I don't think that's why. Well, I think that's why they haven't approached him, because he would only want to take something like 18 months. But United, given the habit, they want managers that are long-term, which doesn't always happen. Tottenham have sort of moved away from the long-term management. Look at Conte for 18 months and those sort of things. So United need to be careful in what the decision they make. But there's nothing at the moment with Zidane. We'll see what happens with Zidane and knowing the next few days, I suppose, or next few weeks with Zidane. It's not going to be something that's going to be quick, because you'd have to convince him to step out of his comfort zone. First, he doesn't speak English. That's not always a problem. You can sort that out. English is not that hard. It's one of the easiest languages you can, especially if for Zidane and some of the players he's mixed with. So Zidane will have to do a lot of convincing in that one. Do I see it happening? Probably not, because United want long-term contract, as I said, and Zidane, he's got to be convinced, and obviously that includes the structure and the club owners. He didn't get on with Perez in the end, so what's he going to do with the Glazers as well? So, we'll have to see with Zidane at the moment. He's one that I would want. It'd be a shame if they didn't get him because he's available. I would have got him on a short-term contract and say, hey, you can have United for 18 months, win us something, because he would. United need to start getting into the habit of winning trophies again, having that success, because it's part of the club and their history. So we'll see with that one. And in terms of Ten Hag, there has been nothing. Again, the board appreciate him and obviously his style of play, but he's quite protected at Ajax, I believe. So nothing with Ten Hag until towards the end of the season, really. I don't see him abandoning ship. I can see Rodgers leaving Leicester to go to United, but I can't see Ten Hag doing the same. So that's where we are. Solskjaer, and we'll just summarise. Solskjaer is going to be in charge for Watford as it stands. Glazers are still backing him. There is pressure on the board to do something about it. Still pressure today, but there's still ongoing talks and contingency plans to talk about what options they can get. They might go for an interim. As soon as I know that they might be making a change, I'll tell you straight as soon as possible. It won't be a podcast, it'll just be a tweet, because I won't have time. So hopefully we'll hear some more stuff over the next few days, which we will, because we'll find out when Solskjaer comes back from his holiday what's going on and why he's taking a week off. Because, I guess he can take a holiday, but in the midst of the crisis, it's a little bit crazy. No official talks with Rodgers, appreciated by the board. We'll have to see what they do with there. They might be forced into doing that. Can't see why Rodgers wouldn't accept. He wants a bigger job now. So Leicester's a good job anyway, but I can see like Graham Potter going there and stuff like that. There's a manager domino effect, as I said. So we'll have to see with that. And obviously the other managers, there's no official talks at the moment. But as I said, Joel Glazer's got a lot to show now. And my opinion is that, he made a lot of promises in the fan forum to be a successful club and to lead towards trophies. Well, he's not sticking to his word. So, the protest that's going on Saturday needs to be Glazers only, because they're the ones that are keeping this man in the job. So, Solskjaer needs to go, but we can't hate too much towards the manager. I know there's pitch issues, of course I know that. That's the case argument of it, but the Glazers are keeping him in the job. They have the ability, they have the money. They can't say that they don't have the money. They made 200 million plus off Ronaldo's shares, so they're talking a load of nonsense. They can easily pay that off. So that I don't buy. I expect him to go pretty soon. In the next few games, the next couple of games, I don't see him surviving. So, and obviously they've got that Champions League game as well, Villarreal. They lose that, and I can see him going after that. But it's a short turnaround on the game, so we'll have to see what happens with that one. And there could be an interim, but we don't know what. There hasn't been a list drawn up for an interim at the moment. So let me just answer your questions on the Twitter. So we've got one from Exterminate 007. We'll call him that. Is there any truth for the links with Rodgers' news that come out tonight, and has Joel made a decision? Well, Joel, as I said at the moment he's retaining interest with Ollie, unless there is a significant plan or sufficient plan in place to change Ollie over. But at the moment he stands, he's going to stay at Watford. We've got one from P1100G. He's quite an active person on my Twitter. Rodgers seems to be the first choice now if Ollie was to be sacked. My question is if there was somehow the Pochettino, Rodgers, Ten Hag. Well, they'll be going for Pochettino because he's always been the number one choice for about the last 5 years. They've just messed it up each time, or they've just, when Solskjaer was an interim manager, they looked at Pochettino, and Solskjaer was performing well, unfortunately, at the time. Well, it's not unfortunate, but it is in the grand scheme of things, right? So he got the job because he was already embedded with the players. So, but Pochettino would have been the manager if that didn't go right, in that sense. So Pochettino there is number one. So it wouldn't be anyone else. T826, is it damn possible there seems to be a lot of noise around Rodgers with the bookies and press? Yes, because Rodgers has always wanted to go to Champions League club, as I said. So there's going to be a lot of noise around there. And he's also got massive Premier League experience. Zidane won't be much talk around him because he's only ever been in one club, which is Madrid. And everyone thinks he's going to wants the French job, which won't happen just yet because Didier Deschamps wants to do the France World Cup, which is the most likeliest. So there is nothing with Zidane at the moment, but I'll keep an eye on that one for sure. Andreas Corsi, why would Rodgers be a good replacement for Ollie? I think his resume is too weak. I don't think his resume is too weak. I think if you look what he did at Liverpool, he almost won the league with them. So he almost did what Klopp is doing now. So he set something there. He's also won multiple trophies at Celtic, and he's won multiple trophies at Leicester with little budgets, right? The only concern I would have that is David Moyes has done loads of good. He did loads of good stuff for Everton. He never won anything, but he failed within 7 months of the club. So it's always the danger. But I think the point is that Solskjaer can't get the best out of his players. Rodgers, he has an eye for talent. So, I think he would be a shrewd appointment. I don't necessarily think he'd be the one that would win the league. I think, if you're wanting someone to win the league, you're looking at like some Zidane or Ten Hag or even Pochettino. If he goes and wins the French league this season, then next season he will have that winning pedigree of winning the league. So yes, I don't think he's not the number one choice, Rodgers, but he makes sense in the sense of what he's achieved in the Premier League and what he's been doing at Celtic and those sort of things. So we'll see with that one. Is Ollie resigning? There's nothing on Ollie. So this was from Mohammed 204-52765. There is nothing with Ollie resigning at the moment. There's nothing. And I've said this. A lot of accounts have said he's resigned already and he's just waiting for a replacement. I've never heard something so ridiculous in my life. He's got a 3-year contract. If he's resigned, it'd say, you're keeping me as manager. Why would they do that? The Glazers, I would have asked for a payoff. He's just going to wait until he gets sacked. Then he'll get a payoff. Most managers do that, unfortunately. So no, don't hear the nonsense on Twitter where it's saying he's resigned. If he's resigned, why are we not hearing about it? So Man United have kept it in cover for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. I'd be very surprised if that's the case. If that happened, that just, it is what it is. But I have not heard anything like that. I just think that's a load of nonsense. What do you know of the relationship between the fans associations and the club? Well, they speak on a quarterly basis, so they have forums quite a bit. The only thing is, it's watered down. So the Glazers can control those fan forums because they're scripted answers, and they're obviously once they have those fan forums, when they go in for the questions, they're reviewed by the PR team prior to them going into that meeting to see if they're acceptable or not. So the narrative is controlled there really in that environment. The best thing to do really is the Glazer sits down with ordinary fans and talks about the issues. A lot of clubs need to do that moving forward. If you want to do this 50+1 thing, which I don't think will ever happen, they need to talk to the fans more, not just the ones that are on the paywall, as it were. So let's have a look. This is from Zay11. Among Rodgers, Zidane, Pogba, who is a favourite by current situation? Well, I would say Rodgers is the favourite now by current situation, but Poch would be the number one favourite at the end of the summer. So But at the moment, there is nothing to say that Rodgers is going to be the Man United manager. So we can't really look at it in that. But he obviously is one of the main favourites now. But they would still have to pay a hefty compensation because you're in mid-season. It's bigger than it is end of the season. This is from Little Club 99. What do you think is generally going on at Man United regarding Ollie and possible time frame to when he's sacked? Also, is it likely replacement for Ollie, and how is it likely replacement will be Ten Hag and Rangnick? So Rangnick's won't happen because he wants too much control. So I don't see that happening. Absolutely no. And there is no particular time frame on when he gets sacked. Because if he wins the next couple of the games, he continues. So that's where we are with that one. Op the Reds FC has said something doesn't seem okay. Well, I can't say that on channel, but talking about the vacation, yeah, I've just spoken about the vacation, so that was just now. It is weird. It's not great that they've done that, but I wouldn't buy too much into it. United willing to pay big money to? I don't think they're massively willing. I think they would be forced to do it if they need to, which is going to be expensive cost. But it might be that they look at it and say, let's just get an interim in this end of the season. We're not going to do anything anyway. So let's just get an interim in. And that might be the possibility from there. If the Glazers, and this is from Miranda, if the Glazers sack Ollie as manager at the club, will they sack Ollie Gunnar Solskjaer playing staff too? Yeah, they're definitely gone. I mean, you saw the news about them talking about their contracts are still active. Well, in other words, they've delayed it and they don't want to give bad press around those coaches, which is fine. But, I said weeks ago they delayed it and the news has come out now. Surprise, surprise. But they won't be staying. Neither will Mike Phelan. Because any other manager will come in and look at it and say, well, I want my own coaching staff because these are not up to scratch. Is the truth. And this is from EOIN. What's the story with Ollie taking a break? I just think it's a break to recharge your batteries and say, hey, get out of the country for a bit and we'll see you when you come back. I don't generally think that anything's happened with it. It's not great a look towards the fans. I completely agree with you. But I think it's just been overplayed. He looks comfortable in what he's done. And I don't think that someone was talking about a heavy luggage. It's kind of a typical luggage baggage to take when you take over a week's holiday. Not what other people take, but it is what it is. Is Brendan Rodgers, and this is from United Best in UK, is Brendan Rodgers the number one choice to replace Ollie? No, it would be Pochettino at the end of the season, but at the moment he might be forced to do Brendan Rodgers, hence why we're hearing a lot of news around it. Big Sammy, when will he and his coaching staff be removed from Manchester United? It depends, mate. If he wins the next few games, then he won't be. So it's, again, and this was always my concern, is that you're giving him the opportunity to try and turn it around and then end up like fourth and third, and that's not good enough for the squad. And again, it's just flattering to deceive. So, hopefully soon. But at the moment, I can't give you anything of that because he's still in charge for Watford. And if he wins that game, I don't see him getting sacked. And this is from Tricky Richie Season. Is there any chance the club pays out the Pochettino's contract? He's been their apparent number one for a few years. Yes, James. Now, that's an interesting question. Because if PSG somehow Zidane says, I'm going to PSG, then they'll be like, we've got an opportunity here. We could get Zidane, who's won the Champions League, will win the league with us. Some of the players, like Mbappe, would probably stay. Big opportunity for them. And then we could say, okay, well, give us this amount for Pochettino. Because Pochettino feels the love from Old Trafford. He doesn't feel the love in Paris. So there's a possibility that might happen. But I wouldn't hold you. I'd save your breath on it at the moment because at the moment there is nothing with it. And I'm just telling you what I think might happen because it sometimes does. But we'll see with that one. Glazers out said something is happening. Well, something is happening. He's still in charge for Watford. So something's going there. That's all your questions, guys. I appreciate that. We'll do that again. And appreciate everyone listening today. So just to summarise then, Solskjaer remains at the moment. Brendan Rodgers has been considered. I mean, they might be forced to make that appointment, but not at the moment. And the other managers they haven't looked at yet, and they would hope to wait till the end of the season. Let's see what the Glazers do now, because they're under massive pressure. There's a protest going on the weekend. Hopefully that goes successfully well for the guys that attend. And we'll see from there, and hopefully I have some more updates closer to the Watford game. But I will only send out a podcast if I have an update. So just remember there are things going on, and Brendan Rodgers is being considered by the board if in case it continues to get worse, which I think it might, and they might be forced to pay the compensation. If not, then they've got an opportunity to look for an interim. So I'm going to tell you and confirm that they are looking at options. They just haven't opened up any talks with the managers yet. And we'll see what happens with Solskjaer after the Watford game. So I just want to say thank you guys for listening. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube, Football League Hub. Make sure you drop into our Discord, by the way. You know, it's not as toxic as Twitter, and people are in a safe place for your opinion. Make sure you check out our Instagram page for previous transfer news or any updated ones going through there, which is FBM Hub News. And make sure you obviously follow me on my personal account, United Avenger, where I talk about my opinions, that some people take it as gospel as transfers. And then I will talk about transfer news as well. I'll confirm that on the same account. So thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully have a good weekend. And I will see you on the next one. Take care now.